should be it says unit 4, but that was from when we originally did it. So the compound inequalities, we'll start there. We'll do 2 of these unless anyone has other questions. So starting with number 6, I'm going to rewrite this. 14 less than or equal to negative 4 plus 6b is less than 32. So with this, because everything is in between 2 inequalities, this is an and inequality, so we have to solve everything together at the same time. And we're trying to get v by itself. So we first need to get rid of our 4 by adding it to all these sides, or the middle and the other sides. The 4's would cancel, so we have 18 is now less than or equal to 6b, which is less than 36. From there, we could divide 6 to everything. So we have 3 is less than or equal to b, which is less than 6. And then we would draw that on our number line. 3 would be a closed circle. 6 would be an open circle. And there would be a line that connects the 2. Do we have any questions on that one? We're going to do number 8. I'm going to first rewrite this so that I have more space to do the work. And then because this is an OR inequality, I'm solving these as 2 separate inequalities. What I do to one, I am not doing to the other. So let's say I'm solving this one first. I can add 2x and add 5 to both sides. So then I have 5x is less than or equal to 0. And then divide both sides by 5. On the other side, I'm going to move my 3x over instead of the other way around, just so I have x on this side. And add 2 to the other side. We have negative 4x is less than negative 4. And then I could divide both sides by negative 4. Remember, when you divide by a negative, you have to change the direction of the sign. And at the end of solving both of these, you should have an OR in between these. And then you can graph both. So x is less than or equal to 0 would be a closed circle at 0, going to the left. X is greater than 1 would be an open circle at 1, going to the right. Say that one more time. Because we divided by a negative. So anytime that happens, the sign changes direction. Do we have any other questions on that one? Of the other ones on this page, do we want to see or go over 5 or 7? If not, on to the next page. So this page is front and back. They have the same type of questions on the front and back. We're only going to do problems on the front, but if you want to do problems on the back, that's fine. So this first section is your when A equals 1. Factoring. We're going to start at 15, go to 17, then come back to 13. So for 15, there is nothing in front of x squared, so it would be essentially 1. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to be negative 27, but add to be negative 6. If you need to list out a factor tree of all of the numbers that would multiply to be 27, one of them have to be negative. What two numbers would work? And then we can write our factors. So whatever variable it is, x minus 9, x plus 3. And that would be our final answer. Any questions on that? For 17, same thing. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to be 12, but add to be 7. What two numbers would work? Say that one more time. So then our factors would be n plus 4, n plus 3. Then for 13, we do have a number in front, but if we look and see, does this have a GCF? Does it? Yes, and what would that GCF be? 3. So I can divide each of these by 3. What would be left? For the middle. So x squared plus 12x plus now this inside part has an a value where it's 1, so we can go back to using this method. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to be 36, but add to be 12. What two numbers would work? So you would leave the 3, just bring it down, and we have x plus 6, x plus 6, or you could write it as 3 times x plus 6 squared. Do we have any questions on that one? Before we move on to the next section, are there any others in this section that we want to see or go over? We're going to do 2 in this section, starting with number 19. With 19, we have a number in front of the square term. So this one is going to be solved differently. You have to first multiply the 3 and the 4 at the back. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to be 12, but add to be negative 8. What two numbers would work? 4 and 3 would multiply to be 12, but it wouldn't add to be 8. Negative 8. What are some other factors of 12? Negative 2 and negative 6. If they were both negative, then yes, they would add to be negative 8. And multiply to be positive 12. So now that we have those two numbers, we're going to rewrite this into 4 terms. The first stays the same, 3b squared. Input your two numbers with your variable. So minus 2b, minus 6b. And then your last term stays the same. And then we're going to split this by grouping, or factor this by grouping. Of these first two, what do these have in common? V. So that's what we can factor out. And if we are factoring something out, we're dividing. What would be left if we're dividing by V? What's 3v squared divided by V? Say that again. It wouldn't still be squared, but it would be 3v, yes. And negative 2v divided by v? Negative 2. What could we take out of the last two, or what do those two have in common? Those two. But this would be negative, since this is negative. So if we divide out as negative 2, what would be left? Negative 6v divided by negative 2, what would that be? 3v. And 4 divided by negative 2 would give us negative 2. Our insides are the same, so that would be one of our factors. I'm going to write this answer over here. And then everything on the outside, the v and the minus 2, would also be part of your answer. So 3v minus 2 and v minus 2 would be your answers for your factors. Do we have any questions on that process? Have we got that answer? For number 21, I mean, we didn't do this for 19, but we should have. Does this have a GCF? Small. 2. We can divide them each by 2. So if we do that, what would be left? 7r squared plus 55r minus so I don't know who thank you there, I'm sorry. Yes. In 1 second, let me finish. What would this last number be? -8. And then we would start the same process as before. We're going to multiply 7 and negative 8, negative 56. Two numbers that multiply to be negative 56, but add to be 55. Remember that the closer those two numbers are, one of your answers is going to be 1. So what two numbers would multiply to be negative 56, but add to be 55? One of them have to also be negative. This would be a negative 1. Negative 1 and positive 56 would work. And then we can rewrite this into 4 terms. Make sure you keep bringing down your GCF. So 7r squared minus r plus 56r minus 8. And then we can split the middle, start factoring by grouping. 7r squared and minus r, what do those two have in common? Mm-hmm. I'm going to write this here. And if we divide r out of both of those, what would be left? Seven r and what would negative r divided by r be? Negative 1. What could we divide out of these last two? Say that again. In this case, it would be positive because this one's positive. But yes, positive 8. And then if we divide out 8, what do we have? Seven r and then what would our final answers be? Or if you switch the two factors in parentheses, that's fine. Do we have any other questions that we want to, well first, do we have any questions on that one about the process, the answer? Did you have a question on that one specifically? You can ask it. Are you sure? Christian. When he gets back. Are you sure you didn't have a question? Did you want us to do another one? Okay, pick one. One. If we're doing 22, we have to look and see, does it have a GCF? Does it have something in common? Is it something I can divide each of these things by? I believe 4 is the highest. If not, we'll go back and change it later. So if we're dividing out 4 to everything, what would be left? If you're not sure, divide it on your calculator. And m squared 57m minus 8. I'd have to multiply it back out in order to figure it out. Okay, so then it's gonna be a big number. That's okay. We're gonna multiply 10 and negative 18. So we need something that will multiply to be negative 180, but add to be 57. I don't know all of the factors of 180, so I'm going to start listing them out. Let's see, 1 and 80, 2 and 90, 3 and 60. So negative 3 and positive 60 would be our two numbers. And then we could rewrite this into 4 terms. Bring down your GCF. We have 10m squared minus 3m plus 60m minus 18. And then we could split the middle and look for what these two have in common, 10m squared and negative 3m. What would they have in common? M, and that's it. So we bring down my GCF, I'm taking out an m, then I'm dividing both of these by m, what would be left? And m and this one. From dividing m out of this one. Then we have to find what 60 and 18 have in common. Six would be our answer. 2 would work, 3 would also work, but 6 would be the highest. If we divided 6 out of both of these, what would be left? 10m and negative 3. And then we would take our GCF, still bring it down. Everything on the outside would become one set of factors. And if the insides are the same, that would become your second set of factors. Does that make a little bit more sense? You're after Carter. Do we have any other questions on this section or on the back that are similar that we want to go over or see? If not, make sure you're going through the compound inequalities and these. Make sure you're practicing them before the quiz tomorrow. Let me know if you have any questions as you're working on practice today, or if you want me to check something or anything like that.